One of the great things about the underground KDKB is they have things that you can possibly hear today, like the local workshop with wonderful Russ and Todd Carroll. And there was never any masters kept of the thing, but there were collectors who collected pieces of it throughout the years. And several years ago gathered everything we could possibly find related to it and put it in a 6 CD box set with the blessings of wonderful Russ and some of the artwork from the Raz Review. Here they are, yes. So they're available to purchase here and only here until this event is over, yes. So we'll go down there to manage the crowd, yes.
So now let's get some of the people who still are in our hearts and in our heads, especially Russ and Marty Manning, to come up here and get on this microphone and talk about this event. Remember, there's a table down here that has a lot of memorabilia on it. It's wonderful. This is just so awesome. Thanks everybody for coming, and we don't have to leave or anything. I just want to thank you for coming. And hey, Marty, you're amazing.
First of all, I need to buy a t-shirt. Now, Russ is going to come up here. Now look, he's just applying for a job. I will yield to you any day of the week, Mr. Shaw. You want to say something? I helped him get started.
You did. Marty helped me get started. That's the God's truth. I want to first start by saying, I know some of you here are high. I know some of you have attempted to get higher and higher and higher. You feel as though God is pushing you down and you keep trying to go up. Now, I believe, rightly or wrongly, that some of you have smoked something. Yes. And so I'm going to do for you a public service announcement on the evils of marijuana. You're dazed, bewildered, trapped in a world without time, where shadows explode and sound collides with color. No, you're not dreaming. This is no science fiction adventure. This is the everyday life of a pothead. Pot, grass, weed, marijuana. They all mean the same thing. Smoke it and you get high. Maybe you're looking for kicks. Maybe it's because it's in and you want to be with it. Whatever the reasons, ask yourself this: is it worth the risk? All of the answers aren't in, but here's one that is. Recent research at Duke University indicates that prolonged use of marijuana causes a permanent loss of earring. The next time you get stoned, maybe you won't just get stoned, you get stone deaf. Thank you very much.
Well, there's nothing quite like following wonderful Russ. Some of you may remember that at one point in KCAC's history, there was a big peace rally out at PIR. Anybody remember that? Yeah. And John Sinclair, I think, they were trying to get John Sinclair out of jail or whatever it was. John Lennon was helping out and so forth. And there was a multi-state radio hookup that Bob Dunn set up with Colorado, I think. Various places. And so, you know, Bill and whoever, Bob Dunn, various speakers got up and spoke. And then Russ got up. Mind you, there are like thousands of people in the heat at PIR, you know, supporting this peace rally. It's being broadcast to multiple states. Russell Means, right before Russell Shaw. It was an alphabetical thing. And he gets up and says, "I'm here today to talk to you about peace." And they're, we're all here for peace. And he says, and when I talk about peace, I'm not talking about the peace that comes from knowing that you have enough food for your family. I don't know, do you remember it? Let's recreate the moment with the man himself.
Peace. Peace to all of my brothers and sisters. And when I say peace, I don't mean the politicians' peace of no fighting between wars. I'm talking the true inner peace that comes only when you know in your heart and your mind that you have enough life insurance.
True peace.
That's a real story. And that's when Russ was selling life insurance, as you may have guessed, before he applied for a job as a real estate salesman, and he's still doing that.
I need insurance.
Just one quick story. One more wonderful Russ story. We were at KCAC. We were in the building on 24th Street. If you remember KCAC, it was in 3 locations. It was originally at Wallach's Music City. How many people actually ever went there or were there? Well, we have to go back one step further. Originally, KCAC was at 40 East Broadway, and it was a soul station. And Tony Evans worked there when he was about 15 years old. That's where Tony got his start in radio. And I used to listen to it, and that's actually the only radio station I've ever gone to and asked for bumper stickers. It was KCAC, I'm trying to remember what it said, but it was little bumper stickers from 1010. And they said things like, remember your ABCs, that's always be cool. And drink plenty of cool water. After that, it was a Spanish station, and it was owned by the other Tony Evans. And that other guy, whoever he was. And it wasn't doing well, and George Soderquist came along, and he was a guy whose job was to, his business was to rescue failing businesses. And so he found this failing business, which was a radio station that was doing Spanish language broadcasting and was essentially, and in fact did become soon bankrupt. And so he took it over, and with Bill Compton at the helm. Bill was not right there at the beginning. Originally there was Ron Wortham. Remember Ron? The delightful Ron Wortham. No longer with us. The production was done by Mike Colassa, who I know Tony remembers. He was a whack job that did really great production.
That's great. Don't have to say.
Peter Martin was there at the beginning. Ron Harris, Papa Eric. He called himself Papa Eric. That was the original staff at KCAC. Not everybody remembers that. Everybody remembers Bill and Toad and Hank, and they actually were the kind of the second staff. And Hank and I'm just going to give you the history here. I hope you want to hear it. Hank and Bill and Ron Wortham and Tommy Vasquez and Carol Compton all came from Texas. They were originally on their way to Los Angeles. They went to Los Angeles. They didn't like it. They came back to Phoenix, where they had a good reception while they were in Phoenix. So they came back here, and Bill went to work for Crux, and that was. And I was talking with Paul earlier. You remember that first moment, that first time when you turned on the radio and it was something different from anything you'd ever heard before, and you were mesmerized, and you couldn't get out of the. In my case, couldn't get out of the car. It was the Crux Underground, and it was Bill. And at that time, he was Little Willie Sunshine on Crux. But on Saturday nights, he was William Edward Compton doing the Crux Underground. And I remember being in the car and hearing Darkness, Darkness by the Youngbloods. And I couldn't get out of the car. I stayed in the car for an hour, just sitting there in the curb outside the apartment, waiting for, smoking something probably. In any case, we've all had those moments. And I remember Bill at some point saying somewhere, running into him at a concert or something, one of those wacky concerts at the Boulders. Did anybody ever go to those?
Yeah.
And hopefully you didn't get arrested. A lot of people did. Anyway, so Bill's saying, there's this radio station coming, it's 10:10 and it's going to be good. And he wound up there, and you know the rest of the history there. And eventually, it was in 3 places. It was at Wallach's Music City. Then we were in a little place at 5th Avenue in Thomas, in that little house. It eventually became Shenanigans Z Place, it was a bar later. And then we moved over to 24th Street, just north of St. Agnes Church. And by that time, they had put the radio station into receivership. It was bankrupt. However, we were making money. It wasn't us, we weren't the ones that were bankrupt. It was the Spanish language before. The hippies were doing great. Yeah. The hippies were making money. And
they understood everything.
We'd even moved past our $1 a day at Henry's Hamburgers, which we used to get up on Camelback.
Nice.
It was there at that location on 24th Street where this guy showed up one day wearing a powder blue shirt, powder blue pants, I think maybe a white belt, white shoes, or powder blue shoes. There was a lot of powder blue. And he told the receptionist, "I'm here from the FBI. I'm here to speak to William Edward Compton." And Bill immediately started hiding things on his desk, freaking out. What have I done? And so the guy comes in and talks. Pretty soon, Bill figures out that this guy is full of shit. And he's not from the FBI. But somehow that guy manages to get back to the studio. And I was there, and with a couple other people, maybe Steve Zind, I think. And we were talking to this guy, and he told us that he was a doctor from the Arizona State Hospital. And it seemed believable. He looked pretty straight. We all had long hair. We were hippies, you know. He looked really straight. He had this short haircut and all this powder blue. He's telling us about the Arizona State Hospital. And then he tells us that he's recently invented a new venereal disease.
Russ.
Oh, who was it, do you think?
Russ.
The wonderful Russ, of course. That was our introduction to wonderful Russ. You remember the Lepla commercials? Lepla Moving and Storage, down the street from when we were at KDKB. The AM station, we had an AM station, and the AM station towers were on the property of Lepla Moving and Storage down the street. And Lepla said, well, instead of paying us rent, why don't you give us commercials? It was our first trade account.
Done deal.
Actually, the first trade account was probably the Henry's Hamburgers, $1 a day. But so here we have a deal with Lepla, and we said, well, what are we going to do? And they said, do commercials for Lepla Moving and Storage. That was pretty much the direction that I got as the production director. So we did a couple of things about moving and so forth, but then Wonderful Russ came along. And you remember those commercials? Hi, I'm Wonderful Russ for Lepla Moving and Storage. And he said, call this number and they'll give you something free. That was the only copy line we ever had for Lepla Moving and Storage. Call this number and they'll give you something free. Does anybody remember what it was?
Ladmo bag.
Yes, Ladmo bag. No, it was a free estimate on moving. But Russ took that and ran with it, and so he you know, for a while he's hi, I'm Wonderful Russ, and then it was hi, I'm the Grateful Dead. And then when Bob Dylan was spending the summer here, and then he left, and he said, hi, I'm Bob Dylan. You may have heard I was here in town, but too many of you found out, so I'm leaving. And when I leave, Lepla handles the move. That was some great shit. And my favorite, Russ, you remember? Wired Russ.
Yeah.
He said, hi, this is Wired Russ. Call Lepla, give you some treat. It was 7 seconds. We ran it as a 30. They never complained. Anyway. it's really neat. I have to tell you, I've been doing this stuff now for about 45 years or more, and it just started for me because Toad worked at KCAC, and he was my roommate. And we had met in college. We did theater together at Phoenix College. And Phoenix College at the time had a great radio station. Not a lot of people remember that K-Jazz started at Phoenix College. And it was called KFCA, Phoenix College. Charlie Buzzard started it. And it was then actually all students, and there was no professional staff except for Mr. Buzzard, who ran the department. So everybody that was on the air was a student, and there was an actual radio program there. And so Gary Kinsey / Toad Hall was in that program, as was Mark James. A lot of people know Mark, who's back in town, by the way. He just moved back from Hawaii. And lots of other people that later went on to work in radio in Phoenix. Started there at Phoenix College. And then that station moved down to Channel 10 and became KMCR, Maricopa County Radio, and then eventually became K-Jazz. Just a little side history there. Anyhow, so they were doing there was just the three guys. KCAC was a daytime only station. How many of you remember that? The station signing off and signing on, and it was really special at the end of the day, and Bill would play a very cellular song, maybe by Incredible String Band, or something like that. No. No, when the sun went down, this, well, Wortham was a magic. When the sun went down, the station went down. Believe it or not, if you know anything about radio, to know that KCAC, to have this strong a memory, to have all of you here tonight, that it was a 500-watt daytime AM station. That's like almost not existing. And yet, it was kicking ass. And it was taken on the top 40 stations, and we were making money.
And doing PSAs.
And doing an amazing thing. When we were on only till 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night, every afternoon at 3 o'clock, Bill would do a forum, and he would do a public affairs program for an hour. And I told him once, I said, Bill, you know, a friend of mine, you know, told me that they don't really like having this public affairs program. They'd rather hear Hendrix. And he said, fuck him. He said, this is what they need, and this is what we need to do. And then when we went to KDKB, it became, as you probably recall, it was 6 to 7 in the evening. So this was pretty prime time, but Bill would do an hour every evening. And that was 7 days a week. And one day a week he would do classical forum on a rock and roll station. He would play classical music for a full hour. And then he gave me an hour to do, and I don't know if we did it every week, but we used to do forum theater. And we would actually produce radio theater and put it on for an hour. And I'm not saying it was the greatest thing ever done. It certainly was no firesign theater, but it was something really different and something that nobody else would even think of trying. So all that came from Bill Compton, and all credit, you know, when you think back about how did this happen and where did it come from, it came from Bill Compton. Yeah. And he was the man. And obviously a guy who left us far too early. As did almost, you know, so many others. Toad is gone, Hank is gone, Dwight's gone. Anyway, it's so it makes me feel really good that I'm still here. Anyway, thank you. Daniel, get up here and talk about the newspaper.
I don't know what to tell you about the newspaper. Bruce will tell you about the newspaper. I just wanted to say that you guys are all great, and there were a whole bunch of people who were involved. Everybody's been telling me, oh, this is so cool, you put this together, I gotta put this together. A bunch of people put this together. And the whole spirit of this place put this together. What, am I talking too quiet? Okay. Anyway, this is just great. I remember so many, I got so many memories of those times. And they were pretty formative years for all of us. And I'm glad that to see everybody made it tonight. And you guys rock.
Glad to see you, man.
You know, they say if you remember the 60s, you weren't really there.
That's right.
You know, I just wanted to take this opportunity, all these people, media warriors, counterculture people, all in one place at one time. Rebirth, the paper we published, one of the more important things it was about was the concerts we were doing out in the desert. Every paper, there would be another concert. I remember the first one, and I wanted to share this story with you because we got these wild ideas a week after Woodstock, so everybody is feeling their collective muscle. You know, we are awesome, you know. Woodstock shook everyone's timbers. Matter of fact, there's more people that were at Woodstock, probably like a third of the population. Much higher than anyone ever thought. So we come out, and with 3 days lead time, we do a Carefree Feast of Friends. No, it was a fruit festival. But actually, we didn't have much to offer. We had one band some friends were in. We published a full-page ad, and Bill hit it a little bit that it was coming up. And lo and behold, the phone starts ringing. We got an orchard. We can bring oranges. You know, we got a band. Can we play too? Pretty quick, we're swamped. You know, people. The time was just right. The time was right. It wasn't an event that would have happened if it wasn't time. We get there. The very first concert. It's a free concert. Everyone brings what they can and does what they can. 1,200 people maybe. And I'm watching the first band, and a desert storm is rolling in, a big storm, lightning, dark clouds, and the band is playing, and I can see the wind blowing through their hair, and the lightning behind them, and I say, this is like fucking Sermon on the Mount, you know? This is biblical, you know? And sure as shit, the storm busts open, starts raining like a cow pissing on a flat rock, all around us, except for the area where the people are. Not a bit of rain. And everyone is walking around dumbfounded, going, look at it, it's raining right there. It's raining, can you see that too? Like everyone couldn't believe it, they're talking to each other, you know. Is this really happening? We took that to be some kind of a sign that we were doing the right thing here, because this don't normally happen. It's like there was a dome over the area keeping the rain off, and that's how it was, you know, and the storm blew over, but it never rained on us. Now, them 1,200 people or so, they will never forget that, I'm sure. You know, we're watching a miracle. We're watching something that defies the laws of nature, practically. And everyone walked away like they had an experience. They go, they had a hell